What's up, fuckers? We're back for round 3. I'm back with my lovely camera wife, Beck. Say hi, Beck.
Hello.
Tonight, we are doing what I promised a few days ago. We're going to do breakfast tonight. We're going to do some biscuits and gravy. We're going to do some rustic corned beef hash. And we're going to finish it off with some fresh hash browns and some fried eggs. 2 different styles to match the dishes that we're doing. So we're going to roll right into it and get it started right now. But first thing we're going to start with is the biscuits. They're going to take 20 minutes to cook in a 450 degree oven, but they're going to be gorgeous. We did some earlier. They came out really nice. If you're watching this, you probably saw the video or the pictures on Discord. So let's get these bitches started. Most recipes for biscuits are going to call for you to do everything by your fingers. Fuck fingers. Machines are faster. They get the job done just as well. So I've got all of our dry ingredients here. Our ingredients are, in this bowl, we've got a 1/4 cup of baking powder, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, and 2.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. In this bowl, we have 6 cups of all-purpose flour. So we're going to start. We're going to put the all-purpose flour into the mixer, and we're going to put our other dry ingredients in on top of that. We're going to pulse this 5 or 6 times just to try to get all the powdered stuff together, make sure it's all mixed well. So again, like from the other videos, if you have auditory issues, this is going to get loud. And I didn't do the stupid ass thing today, and I made sure the bowl was already attached to the base. So here we go. And make sure you let the blade mostly stop before you go between pulses, or the stuff at the bottom is just going to sit there. Now that should be fairly well entangled all together. Now we're going to add our butter and our shortening. Yes, I use butter and shortening, not just butter. Shortening makes everything creamier, it tastes better, and it's fucking delicious, so just do it. So here we've got 6 tablespoons of butter and 6 tablespoons of Crisco, or any other kind of shortening you want to use. I know there's tons of them. Use whatever you want. But make sure you use 6 tablespoons of one, 6 tablespoons of the other. We're going to drop this in. This is all nice and cold. You got to make sure it's cold. You want this to be nice little lumps of happiness all throughout the whole thing. They're going to explode in your mouth. Like most of you probably had something explode in your mouth before, I'm sure. So we're going to add that in. We're going to pulse this until it starts to look mealy. I'll show you what that looks like so you get an idea. But you want little clumps of all this stuff floating around in that flour mixture. It's going to spread out through the biscuits when they're done cooking, or while they're cooking. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to fucking love it. Pulse a little bit longer on a couple of them. That should do it pretty well right there. You can see inside here you've got little clumps. It's a little bit mealy. It doesn't look as much like straight flour anymore. So we're going to take and move this fucking food processor out of there. Put that back there. And we're going to take our dry ingredients, we're going to dump them into a large mixing bowl. Try to get everything out of there, make sure there's no butter or shortening stuck to the side of that thing, or it's going to fuck up your biscuits. So now we need to grab our wet ingredient, which in this case is just one. We are going to use 3 cups of buttermilk. Buttermilk's going to add a nice tangy flavor to it. If you use regular milk, they're going to be flat and they're going to taste like shit. So make sure it's buttermilk. And make sure it tastes good, because if it doesn't, you're going to be upset. So, this is the fun part. This is where we make a mess. You're going to make a well right in the center of your flour. You're going to dump your buttermilk straight into that well in the center. You can use a spatula if you want. I prefer to use my fingers for this. You want to mix this until it's well done, but you don't want to overmix it. If you overmix it, it's going to go flat on you. So just get all that stuff mixed together nice. Make sure you get the stuff off the bottom of the bowl and the corners and whatnot. This is going to be super sticky when you're done. You want it that way. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. Make sure you get all the flour out of the corners of the bowl. Don't leave any dry stuff behind. It's going to give you wicked club hand. That's the fun part. Don't overwork it. Your biscuits are going to be tough. Use your other hand. Smear all that excess biscuit crap back into the bowl. And there might be a couple dry patches in there, like right at the bottom of the bowl. Flip your whole wet mess over. Smash it down in there. Make sure you get all that dry stuff up off the base. That shit's not going to add anything to your biscuits. It's just going to make them dry and shitty. Gross. Biscuits should be fluffy and puffy and delicious. Yes, I'm using my bare hands. You use your bare hands too. It's the fun part. Right. So, to get these done, we're going to put a little bit of fresh flour on the board here. Well, this is a countertop, but you know what I mean. Spread it around a little bit. Make sure you got some out there. We're going to roll this right onto the counter. And the big mass that it is. A little bit of dry stuff. Press that down in there. It's going to be fine. All right. You don't want to overwork this too much. You want to make sure it comes together in a ball really well. Flatten it out a little bit. And this is how you get flaky biscuits right here. Do not skip this step. Flatten that out a little bit. You're going to fold it over on itself. Shove this piece back in that hole there. Little fucker. Alright. Press it down more. Again. And we're going to go the opposite way of the way we flipped it the first time. This is building layers in your biscuits. If you don't do this part, you're wrong. So, if I can do it, it's going to make your biscuits better. We'll do this 5 or 6 times. Flip that fucker over right there. Smack the shit out of it. Puff it down a little bit. What's that, 4? So we're going to smash it down. We're going to do this one more time. Flip it over. Alright, now what you're looking for at this part is you're looking for about 1 inch thickness. Try to get it. It doesn't have to be perfectly square. You just want to make sure that the dough is even. Because you don't want some of your biscuits to be bigger than the other ones. You can use a rolling pin for this step. I prefer using my hands because I can feel the shit under my hands and where it's going. You can see the big old clumps in here of your shortening in your butter. Alright. The higher this is, the taller your biscuits are going to be. Make them as high as you want. It's your friggin' choice. You're the cook right now. So, now that we got all that, got a little bit extra dough off here. We got that smashed down. So right about where we want it. Now, in a professional environment for this, I would use a biscuit cutter. I don't have a biscuit cutter, so we're using a cup. These cups work. Just fucking use it. Whatever you got. If you got a tin can, cut out both sides. Use that. Use whatever the fuck you want for it. Whatever you have laying around. So, I got a cup. So press down, twist, release that biscuit. Press down all the way to the board, twist. Press down all the way to the board, twist. Press down all the way to the board, twist. I know I said that like 4 times now. But if it gets stuck, just give it a pop. See, they're airy as hell. Barely push that cup through there. I think it's going to make 15 biscuits. Alright, so once you get them, your first batch popped out, put them on a sheet tray close together. It's going to help them to rise. If you can't get them all shoved in a row like that, it's fine. But try to keep them as close together as possible. It's what's going to give them their lift. It's going to make them fluffy, and they're going to be fucking huge. Now with the rest of your dough, try not to work it too much. It's already got the layers in there. Just smash it back together. Push it out to about the same thickness as you had it before. And we're going to cut out more biscuits. We're going to keep doing this till we run out of dough. As many biscuits as you can get out of a batch. The second ones aren't going to be as fluffy as the first ones, but they're still going to taste just as good. So it doesn't really matter. Now the recipe I usually use a much smaller cutter, so this should get you 36 biscuits. As you can see, these monstrosities, I'm not going to get 36 biscuits out of. Push it all back together again. I'm happy to get a dozen out of this. I might get 13 or 14 if I roll that dough up one more time. You notice I didn't grease the pan either. Don't grease the fucking pan. It's going to make your biscuits shitty. They're going to be all greasy and gross. And spread that out. Alright, that biscuit ain't going to be as big as the rest of them, but it's going to be tasty as the rest of them, so just fucking put it on there. Take this last little bit and pop that on there too. Just roll it up in a ball, smack it out with your hand, plop, there you go. Now, we're going to put these in a 450 degree oven for 20 minutes. You'll know when they're done. You might want to go 18 minutes if you want a golden brown top. Sometimes 20 minutes will give it a little bit of blackening on the top, not a lot. I actually have one over here I can show you. This is one from the test batch earlier today. They came out nice, they're good and thick. Top started to brown a little bit too much. It's going to be fine though. Beck loved them. She just mouthed yummy. Yeah. So, but it's okay to have that little bit brown on. We're going to put gravy on them. You want it to soak up some gravy, but you don't want it to soak it all up. So, we're going to put those in the oven, and we are going to move on to making our biscuit gravy. And I will show you how to do that in just 1 second. Alright guys, we moved over to the stovetop now. We are working on the gravy for the biscuits and gravy. So you see I got a medium-sized pan here. I got about a tablespoon of neutral flavored cooking oil. Whatever the fuck you want to use. Doesn't matter to me if you want to use sunflower oil, you want to use canola, vegetable. I prefer canola oil or corn oil. This is canola. So, to that oil we're going to add 1 pound of ground sausage. I have a local company here called Mayottes Best. It is the local sausage. It's pretty tasty. It's not overly seasoned. So we're just going to drop that straight into this pan. Try not to throw it on the stovetop in the process. And we're going to start cooking that down. While that's cooking down, you want to get about 2/3 or 3/4 of a cup of plain flour. We're going to make a roux out of the grease from the sausage. It's going to give you a better taste and add more butter and more fat to it.
It's over here.
Not that one. This one. Oh, good. Oh, shit, I'm making a mess. You want a good solid spatula to break up your ground sausage with. Break it down into chunks. I'm going to fry that up until it's good and cooked. Break it down real good. Alright, so to this we're going to add regular old milk. We don't need any special kind of milk. You can use heavy cream if you want. I prefer to use regular 2%. It's cheaper, easier to work with, you get more of it at once. But again, use whatever the fuck you want. Maine Food Network, we're not forcing you into a recipe. We're just giving you an idea how to make shit. You want this to break down into little bitty balls and cook up. I'm sure some of you ladies know something about little bitty balls, don't you? So, we got this over medium-high heat. You're going to want to crank it up a little bit and let the sausage cook. But before you put your milk in here, you're going to want to turn this down, like way down. Because if you put cold milk into a hot saucer, it's going to curdle instantly, and it's going to be disgusting. You're going to fucking hate it. as you can see, a little bit of time's passed and our sausage is all cooked up. You want to make sure this shit is cooked all the way through, because the milk's not going to do it any favors. It's not going to help cook it any faster. It's just going to sit there and be half raw in your finished product. You can see there's a fair amount of sausage grease in the bottom of this. We want that. That's how we're going to base our roux. Roux is just equal amounts of fat and flour. That's all it is. Super easy to make. If you use a tablespoon of butter, you use a tablespoon of flour. In this case, we're looking at about a third to a half cup of grease in here. So I'm going to use just a little bit of this flour. There's about 2/3 of a cup here. So I'm going to use a little more than half of it. And we're going to stir that right in onto the meat, into the bottom of the pan with all that grease, and let that grease soak it up. If it doesn't look right to you, if you've never done this before, there's a good chance that it's not. You definitely want to be able to see some of that flour in there. You might have to add a squidget more. It's better to start with less than you need than it is to start with too damn much. Start with too much, you can't go back and just rinse it off because it's already cooked on there, so try not to fuck it up if you can avoid it. Alright, so you can see the flour in there now. We're just going to let this go another couple of seconds just to start the cooking of that flour so that it's not a dry product. You want it all nice and mixed up with the try English next time. You want it all nice and mixed up with the fat. Make sure it's going to create a decent roux. And also cooking in some of that flour starts the process that it needs to thicken. Now you can see it looks like we got a bunch of wet breading in there. So to this, we're going to turn our heat down. We want our heat all the way down. You want like low. My stove goes low to 10. I put it on 2. So we're going to add slowly to this. We're going to add some milk. How much it takes depends on how much you started with. It's going to cool the pan down with it not boiling hot. You want to make sure you add enough. In this case, I'm going with about a half gallon, 2% milk. Use whatever the fuck you want. Skim milk will work if you like skim milk. It doesn't taste as good to me, but it's your choice. You want this to be a little less fattening, use skim milk. Alright, so as that comes up, you're going to see it start to thicken. And once it does, it's gravy. Take it off the heat because as it stands, it's going to thicken more. To this, we're going to add, because this sausage is under seasoned, we're going to add a little bit of salt to this. So right here I've got about half a tablespoon of kosher salt. I got about 3/4 to a full tablespoon of granulated garlic, and I got a tablespoon and a half of black pepper. If you've ever had a milk gravy or country gravy before, you know that black pepper is very important. It makes or breaks a gravy. Now that we've done that, I'm going to switch over to our whisk. We're going to make sure that the roux from all that sausage gets mixed in with that milk real nice. So as it starts to heat up, the granules of flour are going to puff up and it's going to create a thickening effect inside of our milk. And you're going to end up with a nice smooth gravy and not one that's full of flour clumps and shit. Alright, so since we're right here anyway, these are the same company sausage. I did not make sausage patties. I do not expect you to make sausage patties. You can buy Jimmy Dean, you can buy whatever the fuck you want. I use the local sausage because it's important to support local businesses, especially in this day and age. So, I'm going to throw these right in with the biscuits. Biscuits got 8 minutes left, the sausage will take about 10. So I'll pull the biscuits out and reset the timer for 2 minutes. Do not look in my fucking oven, I told you that yesterday. My oven needs to be clean. It doesn't look good, but it gets used often, so it is what it is. You can already see as just a little bit of heat has hit that milk that it's already starting to thicken up a little bit. You definitely want this hot enough. You definitely want to try to stir it every couple of minutes or so just to make sure any flour that's on the bottom of that pan ain't stuck to the bottom of that fucking pan. It's very important that that flour makes its way into the milk. You can already see it's coming up to temp. The pan was hot. I'm going to add just another number's worth of heat to it. We're going to let it start come up a little bit more, and we will check on it in just a minute. Alright, so we come back about 4 or 5 minutes later. Well, not even 3 or 4 minutes, I guess. And you can see it's already visibly thickened even more than it was. It's already starting to become nice and pasty. It's got a nice tan color to it. That's the drippings off the bottom of the pan from the sausage. Those things are all fucking flavor. Never ever leave drippings in the bottom of the fucking pan. I will come to your house and I will have words with you. And you ain't gonna be happy about it. Never leave drippings in the bottom of the pan. That's where all the flavor is. All that little burn on stuff is all the best taste right there. So you can see already that this is gravy. It's gravy. It is what it is. It's nice and thick already. We're gonna let it, we're gonna move it to the back burner of the stove, and we're gonna let it sit there on very low heat for a couple more minutes. But other than that, you done made gravy. It's nice. It's just not quite as thick as it needs to be yet. But I don't want to waste your time watching gravy anymore. You should know at this point, if you ever had biscuits or gravy before, you know what the gravy's supposed to look like. So we're gonna switch on the back burner to low. We're gonna scoot that over yonder. And we're just going to let it sit there for a minute. And we are going to move on to making the rustic corned beef. Alright, so we're back over our countertop station. Our gravy's sitting over there on low heat. We are over here, we're getting ready to make the rustic corned beef hash. Rustic corned beef hash is my favorite fucking way to make hash. It is the best way to make hash. You buy that canned dog food shit in the store, it's fucking disgusting. Doesn't taste good. It's barely considered food. I wouldn't even feed it to my dogs, as a matter of fact. So, what we're going to start with is we had like a 2.5 pound corned beef flat roast. Sorry, it was flat cut. So if you've never seen a full brisket, there's a big fat end and there's a little skinny end, and the little skinny end kind of comes to a point. They split that right down the middle. You've got a flat roast and you got a point roast. This was about a 2 pound point roast this morning, or flat roast. Sorry. We boiled this all day. We boiled it for about 7 hours until it was shreddable. And so you can see it's nice, good sized pieces. We're going to shred it down a little bit more here, just to make sure that we get some of this connective tissue out of here. We don't want all the fat in there. We do want some, but we definitely don't want all the big old pieces that are in the center between the top of the brisket and the bottom of the brisket. So we're just going to pick those off and flick them in the fucking trash. But you definitely want a little bit of this fat in there. It's going to add a depth to it. So, see that big old nasty ass piece right there? We're going to pick that off. We're going to oh shit, look at that, I almost threw away meat. I'm going to put that right there. No, fuck darn in the trash. Hey Ty, you want some food? There you go, buddy. Alright, we're feeding the dogs now. Oh, Bailey didn't get none? Here you go, Bailey. Alright, Bailey got some too. Bailey's a good dog. Oh, that's our biscuits right there. So, I'm going to scoot over here and grab the biscuits real quick out of the oven, and we'll give you a quick show. They're about 8.5 feet tall though. So we got our brisket here that we were working on a second ago. Just gonna shred it down kind of coarsely. Big old fat chunks are coming off. Give the fat chunks to the dogs. They love them. We got it all shredded down. Nice good sized chunks. I almost forgot to give a piece to Max. Max, you want a piece? Huh? Good buddy. Alright, now Max got a piece. Everybody got a piece now. We're good. Good thing too, because I'm going to have to start throwing meat. I ain't throwing none of this to the dogs. It's too tasty. Alright. So now it's big old shreds. Oh, missed a piece of fat there. Throw that one right there. Do that one to Todd. Todd's good, boy. Alright. So we got our beef all shredded up. We're going to wash our hands real quick. We're going to move over to the vegetables. So give me 1 second to wash my hands. Alright, hands are washed. We're back over here. Let's do this. So, the first thing we're going to start with is potatoes for the hash. Most of the time when you see hash, you get these tiny ass little chunks of potato in there. They're all mushy and disgusting. We're not going to do that today. We're going to split these potatoes down the middle one way. We're going to split them down the middle the other way. And we're going to cut these into triangle sized chunks. About, I want to say about 1/4 of an inch thick. Slice down, maybe 3 potatoes. I don't think we need all 4 of them. The goddamn oven just won't leave me alone. So, go ahead and pause. Go ahead. Alright, so the biscuits are out of the oven now. Let's finish up the potatoes. I'll show you the biscuits in a second. Like I said, we're going about 1/4 inch chunks on these. We want them decent size. It's going to be hearty. It's rustic style. It's not that dog food horse shit you buy in a can. This is real food. We're going 3 potatoes for about 2 pounds corned beef. We're going to make this in batches on the stove too. We're not going to put it all in at once or you're going to lose a lot of color and shit. Fucking timer. Alright, so now you got your potatoes done. We're going to do some onions. We're not going to do these diced. We're going to do these in slices. So it's got a nice big feel to it. So we're going to take the top and the bottom off. I know I told you in the one video to leave the bottom on, but that's only if you're dicing. Now a lot of people when they slice an onion, they slice it this way. I don't slice onions that way because I want good sized pieces, but I don't want gigantic pieces. So I'm going to take the end off right there. I'm going to slice that way. Then we're going to do it the same way right here. Get your sliced onions, there you go. Quick, it's easy. You don't have to sit there and watch the rings pop off as you're doing it. The reason I take that end off is you try slicing right there, you're going to end up with a big old piece on the end. And that shit, you don't want a big old huge piece floating around there. Got a bowl here for these. Oh, that's a potato. I don't want a fucking potato on another onion. We're keeping the vegetables separate because they're going to cook in different time periods. Potatoes are going to take slightly longer than the onions to cook. Unless you want slimy fucking onions sitting in the bottom of this, you definitely want to cook your potatoes before you do your onions in there. Alright, so we got a couple onions diced that are sliced up here. Keep saying diced. Moron. Alright. We got our onions sliced up. We're ready to go. We got our potatoes done. We got our beef done. So we're going to move over to the stove and we're going to start assembling it in the pan and frying it up. We're back over at the stove now. We're going to start assembling our corned beef hash. So I got a large skillet. Same one you see me use in every video because I only really have one good skillet. I fucking love this thing. It's actually too small for what I need, but it fits on the stove nice. So fuck it. So I got our ingredients for our hash here. We've got our onions, our potatoes, and our beef. And I've got a small container here with some granulated garlic and some black pepper in it. The corned beef already has a fuck ton of salt in it, so you don't want to add any more salt to this unless you really like salt. I'm a fat dude, so I try to avoid a lot of sodium if I can. So we're going to take about 1/3 of the potatoes that we cut up. We're going to drop into this oil. I'm going to start browning these up. You want to get these nice and brown before you add anything else to it. At least on one side, because then you can add the onions to it. They'll brown together. It's going to have a nice little fun time in its hot oil bath over here. I'm doing this 1/3 at a time because if you don't, it's not going to cook right. It's just going to get soggy. It's going to be fucking gross, and you might as well have just bought the dog food. You want this nice and big. You want it to be, oh, just fucking gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. Give that a few minutes on one side here. You can slap a lid on top of this. It'll help create a little bit of steam and start cooking the potatoes through on the other side. And that's why we went 1/4 inch instead of, you know, big cube, because it's more surface area to cook on. The more surface area, the more heat is going to travel through the food, and that's the way you want to do it. Trying to make sure that these are all touching. Make sure that the potatoes are all touching the bottom of the pan on the flat side. Yes, I'm using my finger. No, I can't feel how hot it is. The only feeling I have in my hands anymore is right here, because 20 years of cooking and you don't feel shit anymore. It freaks back out every time I grab something out of the oven without a glove. Alright, so you can see that the color of the potatoes is starting to change. It's very translucent around the outside. It's a little white on the inside. That means they're just about done on that one side. So we're going to take about 1/3 of the onions that we cut up. We'll drop those right in there on top of it. We're going to give it a quick spin. You can see the nice color that's already formed on the bottom of those potatoes that were upside down there. At this point, we're going to add a little bit of our seasoning, about 1/3 of the pepper and the granulated garlic. You can use garlic powder. I prefer granulated, but if garlic powder is all you can find, use garlic powder. Now your potatoes are all nice and brown on one side. They're starting to cook all the way through. They're about half done. You've got your onions in there. Everything's starting to brown up a little bit. So now we're going in with this gorgeous shit right here. This corned beef is going to change the way you look at corned beef hash. Corned beef hash should not be mashed up shit. It should be full. This is a great recipe for the day after St. Patrick's Day. It's just absolutely amazing. It's so tasty. It's so filling, and it's so beautiful when you put it on a plate. Beautiful, beautiful. That's the word I was looking for. So we're going to take about 1/3 of this corned beef that we have in here. We're going to drop that right in on top of our potatoes and our onions. And we're not going to turn it yet. We're just going to leave it like that for a minute because we want the rest of those potatoes and those onions to cook up. It's going to take about a minute or two, and then we'll start flipping it all together, and we'll show you the finished product. While we're waiting on that to cook, we pulled the biscuits out of the oven. So here's what the biscuits came out looking like. They are huge, they are tasty, they are perfectly browned on top, and I guarantee you're going to love them. Stick to this recipe. I stole this recipe from a well-known television personality because he makes the best fucking biscuits I've ever had. Said his grandma taught him how to make them. And his grandma is one badass woman if that's how she makes her biscuits. Alright, so now we've given that a chance to brown up on that other side a little bit. We're going to start spinning this whole mess together. Now we're just going to start letting that brown up together and making it nice and pretty. It's all going to come together nicely. I'm teaching Beck how to use the phone a little bit better every day, although she's a little out of frame here, so we're going to come up just a squidge it there. There we go. Beautiful job, babe. Oh wait, come over here. There you go, right there. Don't give me shit for telling her how to do it. She married me, it's her fault. So you can see how everything's starting to brown up nicely. It's starting to come together beautifully. And it definitely looks rustic. If nothing else, it's definitely rustic. We're going to give this a couple more minutes, and while we're waiting for it, we're going to start making our hash browns. Alright guys, we have our corned beef hash cooking away on the stove. Our gravy's ready to go. Our beautiful ass biscuits are right back there. They're fucking gorgeous. Make me a little randy just looking at them. My wife thinks it makes me weird, but I'm a fat guy, so if food don't make you hungry, that's on you. Anyway. Alright, so we're going to move on to making our fresh hash browns. Most people think this is shit you can just get freeze-dried or something you get at a restaurant. I'm telling you right now, you can make fresh hash browns for fucking pennies, and they're going to be great. So, we're going to come down here. We're going to look. I got a bowl here that's about half full with cold water. You don't want to shred potatoes into open air. They're going to turn brown fucking immediately. So you want to put them in a bowl of water. So I've got a regular box grater here. We're going to use the large side of it. We're going to put that right down into the water. Skin on potatoes, we washed them, we picked off any of the bad spots, and we're just going to shred these right into that bowl of water. This is going to help take off all that excess starch from the potato. It's going to rinse them off nice, and then it's going to keep them from browning quickly. Oop, I already got the skillet on, so if you hear sizzling, that's just the water flying out of the bowl. Get as much of that potato as you can. You're going to have a little piece left over. No big deal. Make sure you get all this excess potato down into the water.
Careful you don't.
It's going to turn brown if you don't. We're going to do a few of these potatoes. Here, stare at a grater for a minute. I got to go flip my head. Now, I know we're doing potatoes, Well, fucking look at that. Tell me that don't twist your nips a little bit. It's popping.
Ow! It's hot.
It got big. She's fine. You're fine, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Just so everybody's aware, my wife is wearing a t-shirt that says, "Sorry, I'm late. My husband had to poop." And yes, I bought it for her. So, you see how crispy and beautiful that is? That shit is done. Now we'll go back to the potatoes. Where we left off on General Hospital. Back at our potatoes here. We got our bowl of water, we got our grater. We're going to finish straightening the potato down into the water. Do it quickly and slowly as you like. I like to try to get it done because I don't like the way potato starch feels on my hands. It's kind of gooey, like you just dipped your hands in a bucket of jizz or something. Alright. So we got a couple potatoes grated down in here. Maybe we'll do a third one. I'm going to cheat and do the rest of them off the video because I don't need you guys sitting here staring at me making wanking motions for the next 35 minutes. We're making a mess, people. That's how you cook. Anybody tells you otherwise, they're full of shit. Alright, so we got our potatoes in our water. Just going to stir these around a little bit. Try to get some of that starch off. We're going to add a little bit of clean water to it. Just to get the starch levels up. Then we're going to strain it. And I'll be right back over. Yes, you see a towel. See, we got this towel here. We're going to use that in just a second. So, I'm just going to flip around to the sink real fast, drain these potatoes off. So here's the problem most cooks have with hash browns at home. Most cooks complain that their hash browns are too watery, that they don't fry up like they do at the restaurant. So, what you do for that problem is we're going to squeeze the fuck out of these things and get as much of that water content out of them as you can. We're going to make sure that they are well and dry. Before we do that, we're going to add a little bit of canola oil to our electric skillet here. You might remember... It's fine.
Okay.
I'm not putting that much oil on there.
Okay.
You might recognize this from the first episode where we used it to make crepes. Like I said, it's fucked up because we use it all the time. I love this thing. So we're going to add a dot of oil here. Dot of oil here. We're going to use our spatula. Yes, I'm using the same one from the corned beef hash. It's going to be okay. We're just going to make sure that the oil spread out on that whole thing. So, what we're going to do with our potatoes is we're going to take each serving. We're going to drop a handful right in the middle of the towel. You're going to pick up the four corners of the fucking towel, and you're going to squeeze the shit out of this. Twist the towel. Make sure you're getting all that liquid out of the potatoes. Squeeze the shit out of it. Pretend like somebody pissed you off. Then your potatoes are going to be nice and dry. They're perfect. We'll drop these right onto our skillet here. We're going to go ahead and do another batch. Don't worry about the water that's already on the towel. The water that's already on the towel is going to squeeze out with the rest of it. It's going to stay right there on the towel, and it's not going to affect your potatoes any at all. Use your gorilla strength. If you got gorilla strength. I got gorilla strength because I'm a big fat fucking gorilla. Now we're going to dump these on here in this pot. Going to lay them out pretty flat. We're going to take the canola oil that we used the first time, and we're just going to put a small drizzle right down the center of each pile. This pile is a little wider, so we'll go in kind of a zigzag shape here. Alright, we're not done yet. You want true restaurant hash browns, you need a little bit of onion. Get your grater out. This is our friend from earlier. You're going to take it, and you're just going to take a whole onion with the skin off, and you're going to grate just a little bit of onion right on top of each pile of hash browns. That's going to add that flavor. You always say, oh, restaurant hash browns are so good. It's because they put onion powder in most of them. In this case, you're using fresh onion. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to love it, I promise. However many people you got hang on to this towel. These towels are old beat up ass towels. I don't recommend using a bath towel because that's going to leave a bunch of fuzz and shit in your potatoes. We're going to let those sit for a few minutes. We'll come back and check on them in a minute. And while these are cooking up nice and brown, we're going to go over and we're going to show you how to make some fried eggs in a pan without a spatula. Okay guys, we're in the home stretch here. We're going to make the eggs to go on top of our corned beef hash and on the side of our biscuits and gravy. Yes, I'm doing a couple different meals. You want to know why? Because my kids are fucking picky. My son, my 14-year-old, who'll eat anything, will not eat biscuits for some fucking reason. Stop eating stuff out of the pan, Beck. You're going to have dinner in a minute. Jesus, calm yourself. So, my son won't eat biscuits at all. I don't know why. He's fucking weird. He takes after his mother. So, we're going to do him a corned beef hash and we're going to do his eggs sunny side up on top of his hash. So, I got the big fella's plate of hash right here because you're going to want to take your eggs right from the pan straight to the hash. So, for this, my pan's a little fucked up. I love this egg pan. It's my favorite pan. We're going to put a little bit of the spray, pan spray on the bottom. And then we're going to give it just a dot, the smallest dot of canola oil. We're going to make sure our pan's good and lubed up. You drop 2 eggs in. Keep your oil to the back of your pan. Drop 2 eggs in, right on top of the oil. For sunny side up eggs, one of the difficult parts is getting the whites to cook all the way through before the yolks do. So what I like to do is I like to break the membrane up next to the yolks with a rubber spatula. Get it separated from the yolks. Make sure it's not sitting right up on top of them. And then as it starts to cook, you drag the whites out a little bit just to make little crevices for the uncooked whites to creep through. I know there's some black shit on there. Let me grab some paper towels real quick. The only downside to using cooking spray is it burns kind of quick. So if you're not going to start this right away, don't grease your pan up right away. We're just going to use this to dab out some of the fucking cooking oil shit. So your whites are mostly cooked. Make little slivers here and there in the egg just to drop that uncooked white through. Make sure you get it good and done. You're going to take your rubber spatula around underneath. Make sure you ain't got no stuck points. You're going to take this starting at the white side and you're going to slap it right on top of your corned beef hash, just like so. I'm going to move that off of here. We're going to move over back to the hash browns and we're going to plate this one up for you. And then we're going to do over medium eggs and we're going to put those on a plate for my picky ass wife. So I'll see you guys back over at the griddle. Alright guys, we're back over at the griddle now. You can see some significant browning has happened since the last time we were at these hash browns. You want a long thin spatula or whatever you have equivalent to that. You're going to get underneath the potatoes is all the way. You're going to flip them over. You're going to give these a couple minutes on that side. Just enough to get the onions cooked through. Make sure that they're nice and cooked. You don't want to burn them. If you like your hash browns crispy on both sides, by all means leave these for a few minutes. We don't like them too crispy, so we're going to take them off after a couple of minutes. I like them crispy on one side, but I like them to have a nice texture, velvety texture on the inside. So I try not to overcook them on the back end too much. So we're going to give that just another minute. And then we will show you the finished plate of corned beef hash and eggs. And we will work on the biscuits and gravy plate. So I think these hash browns are about ready here for the way we like them. So we're going to take our corned beef hash plate. We're going to slide that spatula right up underneath. I'm going to put these on here. Make sure you get all them little crispy bits back on there. People ain't going to be your biggest fan if you don't. And so there's our first plate finished up. We have corned beef hash and over or sunny side up eggs, not over easy eggs, and crispy hash browns. So we're going to go ahead and move back to the stove. We're going to make our over medium eggs for our biscuits and gravy plate. All right guys, we're back at the stove. My daughter doesn't like sunny side up eggs, so she is getting over medium eggs. We're back at the stove again. We're on medium high heat. We put just another dot of canola oil in here. Just like we did with the sunny side up eggs, you're going to crack it, put the oil to the back of the pan, drop the eggs straight into the oil. and let it spread back across the bottom of the pan. With over medium eggs, you want the whites broke down, but you want them flipped over. So we're going to take a rubber spatula and we're just going to poke at the whites right here to make sure that they spread across the pan. Because an over medium egg is the yolk's runny, the white's cooked all the way through. And so we're just going to let these sit for a second. We're going to let them whites firm up nice. Make sure we're not sticking to the bottom of the pan. Move those whites into that open spot a little bit. Now I'm going to show you how to flip these fuckers over. I don't want you assholes to laugh at me if I fuck it up. It's been a couple of days or a couple of months since the last time I flipped an egg in a pan. But we're going to try, and if I get it right, then hooray for me. If I don't, shut the fuck up. No lulls in chat. How's that? Gonna make sure she's not stuck to the bottom of the pan here. Let's see if we can wiggle it. Well, we got a stuck piece right here. You want to wiggle the yolks to the front of the pan from where you're going to flip from, because you want their weight to flip the egg back to you. You're not going to flip these straight up. If you flip them straight up, they're going to end up on the ceiling, and that's going to be your fault. All right, so our whites are all done. So what you want with this is you want a rolling motion. Roll. You don't want to flop it up in the air. It's going to come back down. It's going to splatter everywhere. You want a rolling motion. So you're just going to take your pan, lean it slightly to the front, and flip it back over. Wiggle a little bit to get the whites. I got it on the first try. Kiss my ass. Perfect. So we're going to let those cook for another about 20 seconds on that side. And then we are going to go over to the counter and we're going to plate our biscuits and gravy and eggs. Okay, so we got our eggs. Look how pretty them look. I'm a fucking pro, ain't I? Alright, so we're going to take our other hash browns that are on the griddle. We're going to put those right here next to our eggs. And you can see I got my biscuits split in half over here. I don't normally split biscuits in half when I make biscuits and gravy. I put the biscuit on the plate and I cover it in fucking gravy. But today we're going to make surprise biscuits and gravy. Okay, so I've got my biscuits split in half. These are the bottoms here. We're going to go over to the table real quick and grab a couple of them sausage patties that we had in the oven earlier. We're going to put them sausage patties right in the middle of them biscuits. We're going to take the biscuit and we're going to ever so gently just push the biscuit back down over the top of that sausage patty. So if you got company coming over, they're not going to expect that shit when it's covered in gravy. They're going to fucking be like, oh my God, and they're just going to cream all over themselves. It's going to be a great day. So, now that we got our biscuits on the plate, we got our hash browns and eggs on the plate. We're going to find out what the fuck my wife did with the ladle. That one's ugly though. Oh, here it is. I found a pretty ladle. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this mess. Now, if you look at this gravy, you can see just how significantly thicker it is than it was earlier. That's just from low heat for the last few minutes that we've been cooking the rest of everything else. Just sitting there thickening that shit up. I guarantee it's delicious. It's nice and salty, but not overly salty. And more importantly, it's got big ass chunks of pepper in it. Country gravy or milk gravy or whatever you call it, cream gravy, should have a lot of pepper in it. So, now that we got everything on the plate, we're going to take a couple good sized ladlefuls of our gravy. And we're just going to dump that right over the top of them surprise sausage biscuits that we made. That food right there is fit for a fucking king. It is delicious. It is going to fill your soul as well as your stomach. And you're going to love it, I promise. Alright guys, so that was it. We made rustic corned beef hash with hash browns, and we made biscuits and gravy eggs and hash browns. I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. I know the shit's kind of, you know, simple for most people, but a lot of people don't know how to cook out there, so those are the fuckers I'm here to help. I want to thank everybody that coaxed me into doing these videos. We've been having a lot of fun with them over the last few days. All my friends from Final Fantasy 14 who have been bugging me for these videos for God knows how long. My buddy Kid Cisco at Twitch TV/Kid Cisco for helping me get the videos together, and the outpouring of support that I've gotten from various groups and various people that have been super supportive while we make these videos. Beck, say bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to put the tags for my Discord and my Twitter at the bottom of the screen here when we finish this up. And thank you guys very much for coming in today. I appreciate it. Enjoy.